Welcome everyone to our third Voice and Song session. And today I'm here with voice experts Lowry Olafson, Mary Chan and Laz Scort, and maybe we'll have a few new people joining us as well. Laz is joining us from Brazil, Lowry from Canada, British Columbia, and Mary, you'll have to remind me where you are.
Very close to where Lowry is in British Columbia, Canada.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. And so today's session really is just to get chatting and see where the few of us who are here today, right, have some things in common with the voice. And then we also have our own little specialities. And I'd love us to just chat about what voice does for us and where the commonalities are and what we can kind of tease out from there. And we will have a bit of fun. We'll be doing a breakout room, so anybody who's joining as a guest can get into a breakout room with the experts, and at the end we'll do a bit of a Q&A. And it's just a 1 hour session. We won't be going any longer than that. And it's an absolute pleasure to have everybody here. Laz, how are you?
You again.
It's good to see you. So anybody have anything on their mind that they wanted to talk about today? So let me explain where everybody's coming from. So, of course, many of you know that I'm a singer, an intuitive voice coach. I work with the voice for speaking and singing. And Lowry is slightly different, coming from the songwriting perspective. He's a singer-songwriter. He writes songs that help people with their personal power song and helps businesses to develop their audio branding. And also we have Laz in the house, who's coming from more of a spiritual kind of side. She does song rites, R-I-T-E-S, which are, spiritual process of drawing out our inner voice through music. And she also has her own business with web design and branding. So there's a little connection there as well with the other side of your business, Laz. And then Mary Chan is joining us from originally radio, and she's moved into podcast support, and she's a podcaster herself. So how about we introduce, you guys introduce yourselves first, and we'll take it from there. Laz, would you like to go first?
Sure. Also with the business, I help my clients produce their songs as well when we create from that channel place. We just released a new song from our client today called Codes for Grace, if you want to check it out. And yeah, I'm an artist as well. I produce my own music and I help other people get to that authentic place from a place of connecting with their voice and the whole instrument, which is our body. And that came from the branding, like you mentioned, the need to brand ourselves authentically connected with a voice, which is something that I had from my whole life, but I had disconnected for a while because of my injury. I had a spinal cord injury. And when I reconnected with this, I had to bring that to my clients as well, because that was brought back a big piece of me. And I've seen this bringing back a big piece of my clients as well.
Tell me something. Do you invite your clients who are using you for help on marketing and branding to also work with you on the voice and the voice right, even if they don't normally, even if they never would have, been interested in that?
Yeah, that's how it started, actually. I have a sisterhood group. And when I started making my own music, I brought that as a challenge to them to sing and create their own songs. And some of them even were told that they couldn't sing and were afraid of it. They were more like, maybe I can do a poetry reading over the top of a song. But that person is already in her third song, and she's amazing, so an amazing songwriter. So it's in all of us, the connection with music. It's just a matter of removing the blocks.
Did you notice anybody changing how they were branding themselves? Like, did they change the colors of their website, or did they change the way that they described what they did because of the singing?
not the colors, but the way they describe what they did. Yeah, they got bolder. The way they talk about what they do as well, they got more confident. But a big thing is that, and you were talking about what you would like to talk about. This is something that mentioned by this client that is releasing now, and I noticed in the others as well. The way that they changed the way they describe themselves was more in a sense of seeing, I'm not just this one dimension, but I actually have all these other dimensions that I can express through music, even when it's something a lower vibration or something more darker, or something that I feel a little bit scared to touch. But in the form of song, there's that playfulness and that freedom to express all those parts. So they started seeing themselves as like, not feeling like, oh, I can't say that I am. For example, one of them, she's bluntly saying, I'm an earth angel now, because that's how her clients describe her. And she's like, okay, I embrace that. I'm an earth angel. So these playful things that actually represent ourselves better sometimes, like with the sound priestess, is things that they're embracing as, I don't have to take it so seriously because I am multidimensional, actually.
It's very interesting because I think we tend to, in business world, try to categorize ourselves. Okay, Laurie is a singer, songwriter, or Mary Chan is a podcaster, or I am a this, or I am a that. When what you're saying is that you can evolve that way of describing yourself and get in touch with that deeper part of you that is okay with saying, I'm an earth angel, I'm a song priestess. I mean, just me adding the word intuitive to my title was like a very big deal at the time.
Yeah. And you can relate to that, Aideen, like, can you probably notice, like, in each song that you sing, there's a different character of you that you're expressing. And it's kind of like a little bit of the performatic side as well. Like you are performing that side, but it's also, it is one of our archetypes, one of our facets. And when we start seeing that, actually, I'm not just confined to this box, you start playing a little bit more.
There's definitely an evolution. And I think anybody who works with clients will find that they evolve through each client. Like each podcast guest brings you and helps you find a different part of yourself as well. I love that as a concept. So let's see. I would just like feel like I'm going to come up with some interesting way to describe what I do. That's going to be like another comma. Da-da. Why not? Why not? Mary Chan, I don't know if you sing at all, do you?
If you count choir in elementary school.
That's something.
Yeah, but I also feel like even though I do speech coaching, like for reading a script, podcasting, things like that, I still coach in a way where I tell people that your voice has so many melodies. Like people are afraid sometimes of monotone. And when you're monotone, you've only got the one melody. But like everybody's favorite song, there's so many notes. You can go up, you can go down. So why speak in a way that hides who you are when you can use all the melodies in your voice? So that's kind of my connection to the music part for voice.
Oh, completely, because pitch is so unique, you know, and people actually know us by our voices. You can when you hear someone's voice on the telephone, you can often tell who it is without them saying their name. I mean, you know, you don't need them to go, hi, I'm Aideen, leave a message. You know, it's in there already. So do you find that with your clients that sometimes they'll develop a more expanded way of speaking by working with you around voice?
Yeah, just because they think I have to be somebody different when I'm a podcast host. I have to put on the podcast host hat. And what is that supposed to sound? And then they think like right away, oh, like a radio voice. So what do I have to like lower my pitch? I need to stop saying and ah and all those types of things that come with that broadcast standard voice. And so my job is to help them be truly who they are so that what they feel on the inside comes out and how they sound as well. So whatever they say feels just as much as it does on the inside of them. And it all equates versus this mask that we put on of somebody we think we're supposed to be behind the microphone. So, yeah.
So it's not a good idea to start with the, "Hi, I'm Aideen, and this is the Resonate podcast."
Exactly, right? Like you even lowered your voice a little bit and you're like,
I
I'm going to
did.
be a broadcast. I'm behind the microphone. I need to sound professional now, right? Like, but that's not who you are, especially in podcasting. You know, it's about conversations. So a conversation is not going to be your typical broadcast, right? You're going to have the ums and the ahs and the and then you're like, you know what? I'm going on a tangent. I'm going to continue the conversation over here instead, because that's how we have conversations. So it's just coaching those podcast hosts to be who they are and really come alive that way.
Yeah, there's no wrong way to do it. Yeah, I love that. And I actually said to one of my guests recently that all podcasting is giving people permission to eavesdrop on your conversations.
Yes, I always call it like the fly on the wall. You know, it's you are having a conversation, yes, with somebody else, but the listener is always in the room with you. And that's one of the things I always get people to focus on as well is even though you are having that conversation with an interview, you are the listener's advocate. Like you might already know the answer, but you got to advocate for your listener and say, hey, I'm going to ask you this question. I might know it, but my listener would be really interested. And then, you know, go that way.
And one thing that we all have in common today is about, giving people a bit of an insight into who we are, because what marketing really is helping people get to know you. And when we have a podcast, it's like, well, here's me, here's the way I think, here's the kind of people that I enjoy talking to, here's the kind of people that I attract in my life. So there's a nice commonality in that regard. And with singing or with speaking, to allow ourselves to really be just who we are and let people in. Let me move to Lowry, because Larry, you've got an interesting way of helping people get to know a business or a person through the music that they have.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I love what your little sign there, Mary, speak with spirit, and maybe that's something that we all have in common. And even when you changed your title to intuitive voice coach, it's like, that's a lot different, it's like that gives a lot of information that either attracts or repels the wrong people, right?
Yeah.
And which of course we do want to do, but it just says so much. It's interesting to me, when we kind of step into what we do. I'm not doing the power songs so much anymore, the personal affirmation songs that I was writing, just because it just kind of seems like, the universe just points you in different directions, I did a lot of them. I did 80 of them. And then it just kind of like that door closed. And then this other thing opened up where I was writing theme songs for speakers and originally speakers, because it made sense to me that they should be walking on stage to their own theme song and something that would make their message, instantly like memorable and, associate it with an emotion and, do all those kinds of things right away. I mean, of course, you use music to pump up the energy, but why do you have to further Katy Perry's brand to do that, when you can do your own? But what I've found is that actually I've just been surprised by all the different people that have come forward, and Mary knows some of them from that networking group, the EBN that we're in, an insurance broker, somebody that does multi-level marketing, like a relationship coach. I mean, all of these people that are doing vastly. Now I'm writing one with a woman who does safety, and so, but what they all have in common for me is they're all people who are really doing great things for people. Like they're really having an impact on people's lives. And so I think for me, that's kind of when I get interested in people, in working with people, or, you know, people that, where I feel like whatever we do potentially will make their work exponentially more impactful. You know, and that's always what I want to do. And yeah, and as far as the singing goes, it's interesting because a lot of times as a songwriter, I always approach the taglines. I'm really interested in, in helping people get a tagline that would be a good title for a song. Because I see so many people with taglines that are really kind of cerebral, and they're really just kind of mission statements, or they just, you know, they have, there's nothing that sort of describes their personality or the way, you know, something that would set them apart. They're kind of, they can be preachy, or they can be, yeah, anyway, but as songwriters, you know, when we just kind of think, and you guys know this, I mean, we just kind of think in terms of grade 5 language, stuff that's fun to say, stuff that's really catchy.
Let's hear some examples, Larry.
Well, so I had this one woman who speaks on authenticity and on, you know, being yourself and showing up as you are. And you know, she had a tagline that was something like one of those ones like shift or get off the pot, or, you know, something like that wasn't very, get ready to shift, or, you know, I mean, it was kind of obscure, and it was kind of like, I have heard this before, and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, for hers, we came up with just get real. Get real, get raw, get ready. Take the first step. How does it feel? Get real, get strong, get steady. Lean into the mirror, get real, right? So get real is kind of like, she's like a shoot from the hip person. She would say, get real. It's like, okay, let's get real here. And it could be kind of a put down, but it's also an invitation to be yourself, to tell the truth. You know, let's get real here. Let's, you know, put that. So to me, I really liked it. Plus, it's easy to say, it's fun to sing, you know, all of those kinds of things. Another, the multi-level marketing woman, she's, you know, she's trying to, like, she's 78 years old. She's like going concern energy like crazy. And for her, the whole thing that she's trying to do is trying to help people have a lifestyle and, you know, be part of this whole thing. And her song is called Having a Blast. Or having a blast, right? And so it, you know, and then nowadays you can put these, when we write them, we record them, and then I make videos, like a little short video with slideshow of that person, or video of that person kind of in action or doing whatever. And you can use those now on your Zoom waiting room, right? So before people even meet you, the woman who's sells Medicare broker, like when she has a call or somebody wants to talk to her, she sends them to her website. The first thing they see is, you know, how keep Medicare simple, and make sure, and it's like a Margaritaville kind of vibe. And, you know, not that you want Jimmy Buffett doing your Medicare, but the song kind of takes care of left brain stuff, and then the energy, or the lyric does, and the energy takes care of the feeling and that stuff. But what I wanted to say was, with all of these, I always encourage people to get their clients or their audience or whatever to sing their tagline with them. If they'll do nothing more than get real. Hey, everybody, can you sing this? Get real. People will do that much. That's all they'll do, right? But just that, you know what happens when people sing together, right? That's why we're all here, because it creates oxytocin, it changes in brain chemistry, people feel bonded, all that kind of stuff. And they go from, you know, feeling, they just feel way more, they feel better. As soon as they sing, they feel better, right? So anyway, I like that whole idea about music being used in a proprietary way. And then I'll just say one more thing about it, and that is that when people write the song, and this is what what Les was talking about, when people come in and they think they have no talent, they have no ability, they were told never to sing and all these things. And when we write this song together, so many times people just like, wow, that was my idea. I thought that was, they start to rekindle this creativity and joy and start to see themselves differently because as creators, right? So it's not just the guys that are like us that are doing it, and have taken the lessons and made that a priority and done that for our lives. It's like you're saying, everybody can do this, right?
Sure. And it's so empowering to take control of how we're perceived and to bring ourselves like to give ourselves the chance to show something. What's the audible word for show? To sound out what it is you are.
Well, my tagline is sing your brand out loud.
Yeah.
Right.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. It's really stepping into, it's interesting that almost all of my clients that are speakers, they say, when I walk on stage to this song, I feel like, like I have to kind of, not just that, they have to walk on stage to that, but they all use it the same way that people use their power songs for lifting themselves a part of their routine. It's like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd love to come back to Mary, because of course, Mary, you're inviting people in to set up their own podcasts. You're helping them to do that. How do you recommend they use music to help people understand what the podcast is about?
Yeah, that's all about audio branding as well. And that's exactly what I call it too, because when a lot of podcasters create a podcast, they immediately think of, well, what's my favorite song? What do I like to listen to? And so I'm going to create that podcast based on what I like. But I always tell them, who is your ideal listener? And from there, you will then figure out what piece of music or genre will work best. So is your ideal listener looking for a podcast that's going to energize them? Is it about empowerment? Do you need that energy? You want that excitement? So you're going to look for something in that range, right? Or if you're like, you know what, it's going to be more meditative. It's more calm. I need more zen. Then you're going to pick music that's more like that. Or, and I even had somebody once say to me, because I asked them, okay, when you go for a workout, when you go for a run, like what kind of music do you like to listen to? Might be a bit more rockish, might be a bit more electronica, got a good beat. And he's like, I like country music, just like swaying along. I'm like, I never would have thought of that. But if that is your like ideal listener and that's what they want to do, they want to sway along, they want to be a bit more laid back, but still have a bit of a beat, then okay, let's go with that. But it is always going to be, who is your ideal listener and how do you want to make them feel?
That's really great. My favorite music to walk to is ABBA. For some reason, it's like a heartbeat.
Yeah. Yeah,
there's a nice that's just, I don't have to rush.
Exactly.
I
It's a nice walking beat.
It's a walking beat. Yeah. And I never call it hiking. I just call it walking. So where can we take this from here? Because we do have, in a few minutes, we'll go into breakout rooms. What would we like to talk about in the breakout rooms? So we were mentioning there about, finding our own inner melody, right? And I know, Laz, you would probably come from it without the listener in mind, but more like what's inside of me as the starting point, and then where does that go with the listener? So it's kind of like maybe maybe we could talk about this, because here Mary's suggesting, because it's a different thing in a way, because sometimes you have to dig deep to get to that gem of where you can move from. But maybe in the breakout rooms, and let's speak about this before we go into the breakout rooms. Is there a good, order of importance for, finding that music within us, or finding that music that would attract the ideal person that we want to speak to?
I feel like the work inward, it's reflected in the outer as well, especially with my clients, because most of my clients are coaches, and their clients are like a previous version of themselves quite often. So finding that thing in them is often what's going to be resonant with others as well. And going back to the branding through sound, like the sound branding that we are talking, that is common to all of us here. They're not creating songs thinking of that. They're creating songs for themselves, or even like for their kids sometimes. But it's such a personal thing to them and brings such a clear insight to them that their clients resonate with that as well. There's an open. And I feel like it's easier in some way, because we talked about how, like Larry was talking about as well, like they listen to that song and they step up to their game to that. It is a song that you create is a reminder, can be at least a reminder of who you truly are, especially in those moments where you're not feeling all that great. So even that creates sets a bar of, this is where I want to be coming from.
Yes, I love it. Okay, well, let's pause the recording here. We are back, and I'm sure the conversations went in very different directions. We had a very interesting conversation, but one of the phrases that came up was, let's take your voice off mute. I don't know, is that a good song title, Larry? It's a bit long. Take your voice off mute, maybe.
Yeah, we'd have to massage it a little.
Ooh, massage it a little. I love that.
Yeah.
And we talked about what song you would walk out on a stage, and Harriet was able to share a couple of songs that help, that she feels represent who she is in different situations. So that was interesting. Laz, would you like to say anything about the breakout room? Oh, I muted you by accident. Sorry. Go ahead again.
We muted and unmuted at the same time. Yeah, the thing that we were talking about, you were bringing the not being able to listen so well when we're speaking or singing. And maybe that's one of the things that Harriet was mentioning as well, with like the difficulty of picking up on harmonies. And actually, I was thinking that actually might be a great exercise then, because when we are singing harmonies, we are actually exercising the act of speaking or singing in this case and listening at the same time, so that we can be in sync. So yeah, that's an interesting approach to this as well.
Yeah, it's like a brain exercise. I actually just came across a book. Let me just put this, I can put this into the course, or the show notes for today. Let me just grab this link. So I've just come across a book that a friend of mine, it's her classmate from college, and he wrote a book recently called The Singing Athlete, which is, if you love singing, the brain and the body, you come to the right place. So this could be an interesting book. It's definitely one that I want to look into. That this link will take you there, that I've just put in, and I'll put it in the show notes as well. So that's, yeah, it is interesting. So when we sing, our brains turn down our listening, right, naturally. And what you're saying, Laz, is that if we're learning to sing harmonies, we have to turn up our listening while we're singing. And that does sound a little bit like, you know, rubbing your belly and patting your head at the same time. So it's like anything that we do that makes our brain do more than it usually does is so valuable. And we all want to be well clued into our 80s, 90s and beyond. And so I love that. I really do. So Larry, you're sharing something there. Do you want to mention what that's about?
Sorry, no, I thought I was trying to reply to Chris's private message. I didn't do too
No
well.
problem. No problem at all. Do you have anything you wanted to share from your breakout room, Larry?
Well, Chris is a new artist. He's just releasing his first album and a book, and we were just talking about, you know, that whole piece, I guess, of, I'm not sure where that started, talking about, marketing yourself that way and finding your voice, and what style of music, if you have to kind of change it to grow your audience, and, that kind of thing. I don't know. Did you want to say something about that, Mary or Chris?
I was going to let Chris take the lead on that, but
Go ahead, Mary.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Mary.
No, just that, yeah, we were also trying to figure out, okay, like who would be that audience for Chris and who could he speak to? And we were just like debating, does that work with what he's doing? Is that a viable option? And then, Laurie was saying at the end that it really isn't, being a musician isn't, you can't do it just for the money. So we were also diving deeper into the why behind it all, and how do you translate that into a career with song. Chris?
Yeah, well, I've gotten two good book. He talked about Larry talked about Big Magic, and then the one you just mentioned, Aideen. And I think I'm going to start training for lottery winnings to pay for my music. But yeah, we had a good conversation about like demographic and trying to figure out who would listen, and of course that all goes in your message. And I'm at a place now with just trying to figure out. I mean, it sounds weird, but like, who am I as the artist? It's the whole, tortured artist, who am I, and that kind of thing. And, figure out how it speaks to people, what I have to say and share.
Well, and I think that's the only way to kind of find out is just by releasing songs, or, playing house concerts or whatever. To me, I only want to play listening gigs. I won't play in a restaurant or a bar or anywhere where people are talking, and not just because I'm, vain, but because to me, there's no point. Like to me, the only point of singing a song to somebody is so that they can be moved or changed or something, they can receive it, right? And it's a lot. It's a tall order for somebody to listen to a song for 3.5 minutes and stay present to that whole thing. It's a lot to ask of people. And when there are people who resonate with your songs, and then you start to see which songs are the ones that people, say, I was going through a rough time and I thought about that song of yours, or that was the one that inspired me. Or it's like, to me, that's the biggest compliment I can receive, right? As a performer or songwriter, if somebody says, oh, you have a nice voice, or, nice guitar playing or something, it's like, okay, fine. But that's not, that's not why I do it. I do it because I want to open people's hearts. I want to impact them. I want to inspire them in some way. And so, a lot of people are not going to be inspired and are not even going to like my songs, right? So that's, what that whole list refresh thing I was talking about, just like, we just have to kind of like have these really, it's so important for us, I think, as artists, to surround ourselves with people who encourage us. There's plenty of rejection, and there's plenty of disappointments. And, if we're going to put our heart and soul into writing these songs and producing them and spending our money and stuff like that, to me, it's never about the money. It's about somebody being, really receiving deeply and loving what we do, right? We just need it.
Yeah, I actually
Yeah.
loved what Laz mentioned earlier, that she felt that a lot of her clients were coaches, and their ideal client was an earlier version of themselves. And there may be something in that to our music listeners, because, I was, Mike, my husband, he loves indie rock music, and I'd never really listened to indie rock music. So and I enjoy doing it with him. But when my friend Fiona said, Aideen, I was listening to your song and I had to stop walking on the street and stand in a doorway and cry for a minute. And I was like, oh my God, that was like the best compliment anyone could have given me. And my most recent release is another cover song, which, I need to break into writing more songs that, originals. But I had such a connection with this particular song because my grandma passed away the night that it was a winner on the Eurovision Song Contest, and it felt like I really needed to do it. But when I think about that, I know it fits into the same genre and kind of vibe as what Fiona said she liked. So I think that that's where I'm kind of following that little thread of what people are responding to and what am I most pleased about hearing the response from. Like, who is it that I'm kind of going, oh, that's what I really wanted. That's the type of person I wanted to get a response from. So Chris, have you had anyone give your song a compliment that you were like, oh, wow, that was the type of person or the type of compliment that I always hoped for?
Yeah, I've had a couple. I was going to say what to Lowry's thing. One thing I do is I have a running note on my phone, and anytime someone compliments a song, I write it down, because I know I'm going to need it, at some point. And so I was last night. I was in an Uber of all things, and I played a song that I wrote for the driver, and he goes, man, if Tina Turner listened to that, she could do something with that. And I almost fell out of the freaking car. I was like, you just want a tip, dude. Come on. That's all you want. And, I just said to myself, well, even if he thought enough to make a joke out of it, I'll take that.
Yeah, but there could be something to that, Chris. Maybe you're going to write music for other singers as well, and maybe you need to get out to Nashville, because I believe they do songwriting marathons over there, and they love getting new talent in.
Yeah, I and the other one, I wrote a song called Borders. It's about the Ukraine war, and I learned the national anthem of Ukraine and played it on guitar. It opens the song, and then my part I wrote, and then a quarter of it finishes. And another Uber driver, my producer, gives me junk about it. He's like, Chris, making one Uber fan at a time. The guy that picked me up was from Bulgaria, and he was in Ukraine before the war.
Wow.
And I played him a video of me playing the national anthem, and he thanked me for it. He was like, thank you for learning that and doing that. And that was great, because it's really about, the whole song was really about just trying to get, hey, love people, stop being stupid. Love people, so that was really cool.
That is really cool. Very cool. Harriet, would you like to give us your feedback on today's session and the Make Breakout Room? Any questions?
One, I mean, it was really very enjoyable. This whole idea of kind of taking a little bit of serendipity, taking like the moment that Aideen, you were on mute, and just, oops, I'm on mute. And this whole idea of freeing up our voice,
taking it off mute. Yeah.
Yeah. And earlier this week, I had a conversation with Mark Cox, who was on your a host previously. And
on the Voice and Song Summit, Mark is a coach who does healing with the voice as well.
Right, and healing, and kind of what you said, that we wanted to coach people that like we used to be, and which is interesting. I'm also I coach in a different venue, but this whole opportunity of one practice, that you actually have to do the work, which is always, I think musicians who are professional musicians really have that diligence, the due diligence to do that. But also, Nadine, what you were talking about, the discoveries that when we're speaking, we lower our listening. As we singing, we lower our listening. And then Liaz was talking about when you sing harmony and you practice singing harmony, that you have to bring those up more into balance. And, I'm thinking of the French eye, ear, nose, and throat doctor from the 50s, I think. And he's done some work with using autistic kids in training, and that our we can only audiate what we can hear. And so we have to increase our hearing. And in some ways that goes back to this whole conversation about going inward to see who we actually are so that we can express it to the world. I mean, it may seem strange, that's what I got out of it, but this whole conversation in the breakout room and in the bigger room. Yeah.
I love that, Harriet. That's beautiful. Well, we're going to be wrapping things up in a few minutes. So let's maybe each of us a few seconds. I'll start. Something came into my mind there was when we're even podcasting or speaking on a stage or performing a song on a stage. One of the things that I always suggest to people is to tune up the listening, especially in those little moments of silence, because sometimes we don't tune into the room. We don't listen. This is the problem. We don't, and it's not necessary that we hear anything when we're doing a speech. We're not necessarily asking people to respond. So when we take a moment and we listen, we actually pick up a lot on the energy of the room. And it's about that, starting to understand who's responding to us, who is our listener, who do we connect to. So that was something that I love that kind of has been, it's going to be a little thread now of curiosity that I'll be unpicking for the next few days. Thank you, Mary, for joining us today. What was your takeaway from today, or anything that you'd like to say to wind things up?
Yeah, a lot of the things that you all speak about in music is translated exactly the same way into being an entrepreneur or speaking, just voice and podcasting and interviews as well, right? It's about finding out, what do we truly value? What is it that we want to share through our voice? And in your respect, in music, and what kind of reaction do we want from people? Because that really is what it's all about. When we speak on a podcast, we're sharing our core message, we're sharing our values, we are sharing something really important in our lives, and it's the exact same thing, just a different platform. So I loved hearing all the stories, and thank you for Chris for sharing in the breakout room.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mary, for being here. Laz, anything you'd like to reflect on or share to finish?
Yeah, one thing that I was going to say to Harriet as well when we were talking at the end of the breakout room, you talked about the more scientific version of that, like our brains listening to with different sides and different ways of connecting to sound. And I was thinking from the spiritual standpoint as well, because if we think, and this came up in a one-on-one session that we had as well, if we think of our brain as the thing that needs to do everything, and we need to think every detail in singing, it's too much bandwidth to do it in real time. So there's a lag, right? The brain can do it in real time. But if we accept that we are an antenna and we're picking up the signal all the time, and we can let go a little bit of the control and trust that there's something in here that is able to process things in a much faster way, in a much better way than our logical mind can, that's where the magic happens. So yeah,
That is beautiful. I mean, that's where intuition comes from, in my opinion. That's how I work, is by not trying to hold on to information and try to fit it into anything, but being more like, what's going on here? And somehow, like that antenna that you mentioned, we do pick up stuff. I'm sure when, as a songwriter, as a podcast host, we need to have that antenna on, because then it brings us very naturally to what flows next for the audience and for the guests that we have, and for the music and for our client. So that's beautiful. I'm writing that down. Antenna. I'm making sure my antenna, I feel like, some sort of an alien now with little antennas on my head. Lowry, last but not least, what's your takeaways from today?
Well, I got a lot of takeaways. I love that one of Les, that our clients are who we used to be. That one's amazing. And that whole idea about listening when we're speaking, that we stop doing that. I wanted to say one other thing about compliments, and I used to do this exercise when I was doing my motivational speaking stuff, and I called it compliments that matter. And I got people in a workshop situation, I got people to write down on a piece of paper one compliment that they had received. And this was mostly speaking to teachers or nurses or that kind of people. One compliment they'd received that had really stood out, that they really remembered. And it was amazing, it would be things like, you made math fun, or you made me, you accepted me when other people didn't, and with some of them were really profound, but it was like that exercise, people were practical, and I would read them off and people would be in tears, because those compliments that matter, I think, are the things that are really say, this is your life purpose. This is why you do this. And, what's that one thing that somebody said to you that is like, just like, yes, thank you. That's moved you. So I just thought I'd share that exercise and said.
That's just an amazing thing. Like, I mean, there instantly a compliment pops into my mind that was life-changing. And
Well,
someone
like
just
the
said,
one you said, the one you said, that woman.
yes, that woman standing in the doorway crying. That's a line for us.
That
I'm standing in the doorway crying. I'll come up with a song now just for Fiona. Look, guys, it was an amazing conversation, and we're doing this once a month. It's open to anyone to join. Voice experts talk for the first half. We do a breakout room, and then we have our Q&A. And please invite people, and I hope to see you guys in the next month or two. The times are changing, they're varying different from month to month, so keep an eye out for that. And thank you, Larry Olfson, for bringing your beautiful voice to our session today. Larry helps people find audio branding and make music that defines who they are and what their clients will connect with. And Laz is a song priestess and a branding expert as well. Mary Chan, podcast extraordinaire, helps people find their voice and reach the people that really need them through podcasting. And thank you also to our guest, Harriet, who amazingly used to bring her guitar into senior facilities and, sing with 80-year-olds and harmonize with them. And Chris, also a musician, and we're so excited to hear about your album and your book. So it's exciting times. Yes, you can invite anyone you'd like to invite, Mary, and I can talk to you at the end. I'm going to stop the recording now. So thank you all for joining us, and use your voice. Let's take your voice off mute. Take care. Bye-bye.